So Megan and I were just talking earlier. Thank you for ending this with an easy question. Absolutely, and we already are. It's a personal passion of mine because I didn't get that in school, and I paid the price all through my adult years and thought many times, why didn't they teach us this? I've been talking with Governor Gordon about it, had many conversations about it. We're looking at what other states are doing in this area of financial literacy. I don't know if it would require, I do know it would require a decision by the legislature to make it part of our content areas. I think our content areas, the basket of goods needs to be revamped and condensed anyway. Too many content areas, too many standards, teachers can't possibly teach them all. But financial literacy, like literacy, should be one of those priorities. So if literacy is the foundation of everything we do in education, reading literacy, then we need to get really good at laying a strong foundation. And on that score, there is no more debate. We know how to teach reading. We know which model bears the most fruit. We should just stick with it and stop debating. So that's literacy at the K through 3 level. Financial literacy, I believe, at the middle school, high school level should be what literacy is at the lower levels. Absolute priority. For our schools, and if that means making it one of the content areas, because I believe it should be taught from kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade, so it hits the kids year after year in waves and layers. And there's a lot of groups out there doing really good work in this. Jade Ramsey has developed curriculum from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. Junior achievement, training volunteers to come in and teach it so it doesn't put more work on the teachers. Absolutely, financial literacy should be a priority. We're already making it such. And our country will bear the fruit, and our country is bearing the fruit of not having financial literacy in our schools on the adverse side. So, yes, absolutely.
Well, this is a great question, and I absolutely agree. This has got to be a priority in our education system. At the end of the day, we want to ensure that our graduates become good, productive citizens in our community, and they have good jobs. And we're setting them up for failure if they cannot balance a checkbook, if they don't have those simple financial literacy tools. And so we want to make sure that we're engaging with students. When we talk about inflation, when we talk about runaway federal spending, it's our children, it's the next generation that are going to have to deal with those issues. So it's very important. I've been involved since its inception in a project in Casper that's called YOTown. And it really focuses on financial literacy. They have storefronts, they have banking, government, all these ways to really incorporate financial literacy and how it will apply to these kids. And this is at the grade school level, apply to them in their future. They do a great job of partnering with industry, which is something that I think we have to do in this discussion, and make sure that we're preparing our kids and we're teaching them those tools to be good citizens. Thank you.
This question, like the last question, is profoundly philosophical. It gets down to some core values that we as human beings must not only acknowledge but address. When we talk about the suicide scenario, we're aware of it, but what are we going to do about it? Every time I go to a store, and all of us have been there, and we give them a $10 bill for a $6.43 ticket. And I've seen people of all ages literally fumble in trying to make the change. This is happening across America, not only in Wyoming. We have a society that relies on this, the calculator. Somewhere along the line, we have to teach our students to, number one, acknowledge this. 2 plus 2 must equal 4, whether it's Evanston, Wyoming, or Beijing, China. Bottom line. We must learn how to read, as Brian has made mention. We've addressed the literacy, reading, but now we need to address something else. I would extend this even further. Students should not only be able to balance their checkbook, but they have to put rhyme and reason as to the numbers as they're putting in. I would say students should also have an entry-level, double entry accounting skills about them. Money in, money out, where we're spent, what's the end product. But you know, it seems as if more and more our society has become more frightened of that number. For how many of them even know what prime numbers are? So we're talking about a concept here that has to be made more user-friendly. And I maintain that our teachers are the front line defense for the success of our society and our future. Thank you.
Thank you. So our round 2 question for our senators in District 15 is, do you feel Uinta County has the necessary infrastructure in place to handle future economic growth?
Thank you for the question. I think it's a good one. No, I don't think we're quite there, but I think we have a pretty good process in place, particularly in Evanston. I think the Valley, both Mountain View and Lyman, maybe we would need a little more work there in terms of infrastructure, but City of Evanston has done a great job in trying to replace some of our aging infrastructure, our water lines, sewer lines, and that sort of thing. Housing right now is a little slow, and I know it's just like in every other city that I talk to other people at, that they can't get builders, they can't get people to get the supplies they need. So that's a concern, and particularly affordable housing. It was mentioned, I think, earlier by Tim Beckler that we need more of that. I've been working with, for 4 years on trying to see if we could do something with the old state hospital for housing. And I finally have kind of reached out and got a couple of private investors that are maybe looking at it. And maybe we get something with them, making a collaboration with some of the ARPA funds in the state. It's still a dream, but I hope we can get that done. And possibly provide some housing up there for our seniors, our veterans, you know, those folks that we still need more low-income housing as well. And even people that are coming to town, to our teachers and other people that are working in the service industry, so, you know, places they can afford. So we're not where we need to be. You know, we do have 2 manufacturing companies that are coming to town. One that's already, we've got the infrastructure for. That's going to require that we have more housing and those kinds of things. The Valley has a little bit of growth, not near as much as we do, but there's some things we need to do because obviously we have a nuclear plant coming 40 miles away, and those folks a lot of those are going to trickle over here. Cameron doesn't have the infrastructure, I don't think, to keep them all there. I know they don't. And so we've got to be ready for it. And so we're not quite there, but I think with the ARPA funds we've got them, we need to just use them for what we can to help get ready for those kinds of things. Thank you.
I got the same question, oddly enough. No, I think that we're doing well in Uinta County, but I do not think that we're there. But I do have the full faith and confidence in our community. You know, I'm not a native to this community, but I've seen this community in action, and I do believe that we've got the ability to come together. You know, we don't really know what the future entails. We've got a lot of things that we're speculating, a lot of things that we hope are coming. But I do believe that that's one thing. I think I'm very proud of our community. As I've traveled this state, there's no place else I'd rather live in the state of Wyoming. The people in this community are just phenomenal. And I am very proud of our community. I think we've rallied around each other. Some of you may remember I had a son that had some health issues, and I'll never forget what this community did for me and my family. And I know we've got it. I really believe there isn't anything that's coming on the horizon that we can't address as a community, because we do. We've always rallied around the people. And that's why I have more faith and confidence in the people in our community than I do the government. And that's why I want to fight to make sure that the government's getting off of your throats. I want to do like Kurt suggested. We need to find a relief valve for the taxes. We're being taxed on unrealized gains that we have not occurred yet. So with that, I do appreciate it. Good question.
Bob, you're not the only one that got that same question, so I see that here. I'm going to repeat the question again. It is the same. Do you feel that Uinta County has the necessary infrastructure in place to handle future economic growth?
Now let me start by sharing with you the definition of economic growth. Economic growth is a production of services and goods over a period of time. That's the definition of economic growth. As we speak today, the answer from my perspective is no. We do not, as we speak today. But the most important thing to recognize is when we look at recently, in fact, U.S. News published a report on economic development and, more importantly, the rankings of the states. When we look at that, Utah was number 3, Idaho was number 1, and oddly enough, or unfortunately enough, Wyoming ranked 49th. We've got a great deal of work to go. Just a couple notes here as we talk about that. It's easy to be a part of the problem or identify the problems, but it's a greater thing to be part of the solution. And that's why I serve on the Uinta Economic Development Commission, and I also serve on the board of directors for the Wyoming Economic Development Association. We have an opportunity, as I mentioned in my beginning broadcast, or my opening statements rather, that we have a number of jobs, specifically around 2,000 jobs coming north of us for the Terra Power. We also have another 600 jobs that are coming just to the east of us with the soda ash mine that's expanding. 80% of those jobs, recognize, 80% of those jobs require vocational education training. Plumbers, electricians, welders, journeyman carpentry, etc., so forth. We've got to meet this. As I mentioned as I started, we are at the cusp, we're at the doorstep of a great opportunity for our children, our posterity. We need to form alliances, collaborative partnerships with our businesses, specifically Terra Power, the soda ash mines, etc., and get that into schools. It doesn't take a nuclear scientist to meet the future. 80% of those jobs recognized are for this coming next 5, or more importantly, 1 to 5 years. In the last 15 seconds I have, I want to share with you something else. There have been 7 manufacturing visits to this county looking for opportunities to expand and build here. I'm a part of the solution, working aggressively with the UN Economic Development Committee, with my colleagues, to develop this 1,000 acres we have out there that you've heard of for a long time. Thank you.
Well, as John said, the answer is no. We don't have the infrastructure here. But we do have opportunities for a lot of business to come in here. But we need to make sure it's done right. I don't know what idiot first came up with the idea that government has to pay companies to come here to Wyoming. A lot of states take that. A lot of cities take that. If you look, Uinta County is largely ignored by Cheyenne. They brought Magpul into Cheyenne. They paid them $15 million, created 75 jobs. Their corporate headquarters didn't come to Wyoming, they went to Texas. Weatherby came to Sheridan. We paid them $12 million, gave them a building at below market rent with an option to buy it below value on the property, and we paid all their moving expenses. Now, how long does it take to amortize those deals out? It's not government's job to pay people to come here. And I'll tell you, a few years ago, I was talking to one company, a very large company looking at moving out of Arizona, and telling them how great Evanston was to come here, and they were thinking about it, until Representative Obermuller introduced a corporate income tax bill at the legislature. Immediately they said, we're going elsewhere. We can't take that chance. We did kill the bill, but we can't take that chance. If we want companies to be here, we need to cut the red tape. We need to make this a business-friendly state. Low taxes. And people who tell you Wyoming's the lowest tax, they're lying. It's not true. Property tax alone, we're about number 34. But there's a lot of things we can do to bring companies here, but paying them isn't the right way to do it. But we can bring them here. Evanston's a great place. The Bridger Valley, that's got huge areas, and it's a great place to go. Thank you.
Just as John and Carl said, yeah, I don't believe that we have the infrastructure in place for this. And I know when I look at new electric plants, whether it's nuclear, coal, or any other, I think we also need to recognize that we have a power grid that's getting older and older. I recall seeing an executive order by Donald Trump. He was requesting that the Department of Homeland Security would look into the potential risks of solar storm, solar activity, electromagnetic pulse attacks, things of that nature. I think as we look toward the nuclear future, we definitely need to consider modernizing our electric grid, securing our electric grid. I think we've got a lot of work to go. Kind of touched with what Carl said, I think that there's other ways that we can bring businesses in here from out of state. You know, if we have, just for an example, here in Evanston, we've got, you know, pretty decent population here. We may be able to cap their taxes at, you know, like their, what do you call it? We're basically, for smaller businesses, if they're gonna have $50 million worth of valuation, you know, to begin with, maybe we can cap their taxes at, I don't know, $30 million for a 10-year period or whatnot. These are just arbitrary numbers. But in places where we have rural, such as Lyman or things like that, maybe we can do a little better, cap their taxes at $10 million, you know, and if they, you know, exceed that over a 10-year period, then, but we have other ways to incentivize businesses in here other than government paid for.
Thank you. And again, the question is the same for our last group, but I'll repeat it. Do you feel that UNT County has the necessary infrastructure in place to handle future economic growth?
Well, I feel no, but as a community, we can get better, and we all can get better at growing our infrastructure, right? We can get better in the infrastructure in our schools and attracting more teachers here, okay? Get back into that. We can get better with replacing some city sewer lines that are downtown that need to get better and start doing those kinds of things. Better road management, okay? Redoing our roads, they need a lot of help. But one thing that attracts people to communities, and when we start talking about that, they want three things. They want really good education, which a lot of us support. Two, a hospital system, a healthcare system that's here. And three, a lot of people say golf course. So we do have a golf course. They like having that golf course. And it's like, whoa, those are the things you want? But they also want affordable housing. And it's tough. It's very difficult. My own daughter right now, she just got into education. It's been hard to find housing for her that's affordable, but it's a great investment. It's something I keep telling her. The housing market goes up and down, and something to be patient with, okay? Now, really, we're talking about teachers, and then I'm gonna start talking about our other public employees, our city employees, our state employees, okay? Our small business owners, they want affordable housing as well. So where do we do that? And a lot of people have brought it up. It starts with hopefully capping and supporting legislation that can cap some our taxes on our properties and helping out there. And also looking at how we inflation, but how do we support other states, or how do we take care of inflation in this area as well, which is again becoming energy independent. Would be great. So, anyways.
Well, being the seventh person to answer the same question, probably going to end up sounding like a broken record. But I feel like Ryan hit it right on the head. I don't personally think that we have the infrastructure for a lot of these incoming things, such as the soda ash plant, the nuclear plant. We don't have that infrastructure right now, but I'm very optimistic about UNT County's future. With talking to multiple people around my district here as I've been going, I feel a lot of their concerns. One of them is, there's a bunch of people coming in here from out of state. They just show up, pay cash, they buy our houses, and then the actual residents that have grown up here, they're either having to move or they're looking at apartments renting. So we definitely need to address the housing situation. I know that there's plans east of town, a lot to, I believe it's southeast, I'm terrible with directions. But out by the retirement home, they're building out a lot of infrastructure that way. Southwest. But so, getting back to the main thing, I don't think we do have the infrastructure, but I'm very confident that we can get there, and we need to actually prioritize our citizens, our people. Ryan kind of mentioned our public employees. Coming to the forums previously over the last couple of weeks, we've heard from the sheriffs and the county commissioners, and a lot of their concerns are like for firemen, for police officers, for sheriff. It's hard to have retention because we can't provide with enough funding and all these, and as we continue to grow, we're going to need bigger infrastructure in our public servants. So it's definitely something we're going to have to address with funding, and we need to have less government overreach and more support.
Well, in pondering this question, I looked out over the audience, and I'm guessing that there are at least a few of us who lived through the boom of the early 1980s. Most of you are younger and did not experience some of the problems we had to go through at that time. I don't know if you remember the housing situation at that point was critical. We had man camps, we had hundreds of employees who did not have access to services. We had law enforcement problems, but we were not ready at that point to take on those numbers. Through that process, I think we learned some things. We had some impact assistance that helped us plan in our community, and as a result, we have in our community a much better situation today than we had 40 years ago. That said, we still have some critical needs if we're going to see economic growth in our community. One of those has to do with the expansion of broadband access, which is critical, not only to businesses that want to come to our community, but as well as to our elderly who may be stuck at home and need access to the outside world. Speaking of the elderly, as we're talking about affordable housing, we need to keep in mind and we need to fund the elderly tax credit that's been on the books since 2015 so that our elderly are not driven from their homes by higher property taxes. We have workforce issues that need to be addressed. It's one of the major stumbling blocks with new businesses coming to town. And it's going to take an expansion on the already beginning process of expanding workforce opportunities and training in the county, but it's an issue that we need to seriously address as soon as possible.
Okay, we will begin our final closing statements. Again, as a reminder, 2 minutes for each candidate. And we'll begin here with.
I would like to conclude by once again thanking the Evanston Chamber of Commerce for letting me speak tonight. I had another appearance scheduled in Afton for tomorrow night, and even 2 days ago, the people putting it on gave me the information. I got an email yesterday saying that the only race that was not going to be formed was the U.S. House, and that was because none of the other 7 candidates were willing to show up or to even appear by Zoom. It appears that there's a strategy, I guess perhaps Joe Biden created this strategy of staying in your basement. You win an election. But that appears to be what's happening here. And so I won't be speaking tomorrow night. I do appreciate this opportunity. I was in Thermopolis 2 nights ago, and Ms. Harriet Hageman was the other candidate that was there. It was the 2 of us for the U.S. House race. And the 2 things I noticed about her speech was she did not criticize Liz Cheney, and I do not remember her saying anything positive about President Trump. She was talking about being a 5th or 6th or whatever generation Wyomingite, and her work in the regulatory areas. but I don't remember her saying anything positive about President Trump, who really is responsible for her being in the position she is. And I think she can stay in her basement and win this election from this point out. But I'm really disappointed that none of the other candidates cared enough to come here. I know that you guys care because you're here, and I hope you understand that I care, and that's why I am here. I remember hearing Senator Alan Simpson speak. I told you I'm very conservative in my views. I'm pro-Second Amendment. And I heard Alan Simpson once say, when people in Wyoming talk about gun control, they're talking about how steady is your hand. And I thank you, and I appreciate it. If I get the opportunity to continue past August 16th, I'll be back. If not, I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. We'll wrap it up here because I want to catch up with my wife and grandkids up in the mountains around a campfire. They get hot dogs, and I get Costa Mesa in Evanston. All right, I'll read a quick statement from the senator, but a quick note to our legislative people work in the legislature. Look at your responsibilities as a regional approach. I do that. Southwest mineral industry is big on my agenda. I do a lot of that. Even Evanston. Big new mental health care facility up on the hill. How did that start? I ran a footnote when I was on appropriations in the budget at the very last minute that we take a harder look at our mental health care facilities. Last minute footnote that led to a ribbon cutting in Evanston. All right, here's Senator Nethercott's statement. In many instances, we agree, but she says that ensuring safe and secure elections in Wyoming is important by working with all 23 county clerks. Maintaining a successful business division within the Secretary of State's office is important. She has a commitment to the economic diversity, job creation, and job retention of the state that will be reflected in the Secretary's business division. And she says essentially, I'm excited for the opportunity to continue to serve the people of Wyoming as Secretary of State. We should be proud of our elections. Wyoming serves as an example for the nation for election integrity, but it is more important than ever to protect Wyoming's elections. She says, I will be steadfast and vigilant to ensure safe and secure elections to defend our shared Western values, and will bring my experience and dedication to this as your next Republican Secretary of State. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's great being here in Evanston. I'm going to be around here for a couple of 3 days on this end and side of the state. So if you got any other questions, my number is 307-630-2023. You'll probably see me out there pounding a few fence posts and putting up signs and different things like that. And I've got a whole truckload of them out there to basically sign in paper the whole western side of the state. I don't think we'll get that far, but we'll try. A few things. 2 years back to back, we've beaten the benchmark. Now, how hard is that? Basically, if you're a public equity a mutual fund, you don't do that 80% of the time. We did it 2 years back to back. We did it when the market was going up. We'll probably beat it while the market is going down. We'll lose a little bit of money, but we won't lose as much as the other guys or as much as our benchmark. We're the #1 sovereign wealth fund in the U.S. That was by the Peterson Institute. #3 in the world. We were also nominated for the Turnaround Fund of the Year. And what that was in our private equities. We went from 7.2% to 39% and 37% in back-to-back years. Master Magash, he's a guy that does that in our shop, and he hit it out of the park 2 years in a row. We've onboarded a new accounting system. That one went live. We started it on basically for the last 4 or 5 months, running dual systems, the old one and the new one. July 1, we put all of the general ledgers in there, hit the button on the 13th of July. it's pumping out a lot of good stuff. I'm gonna add 50 million to the educational investment system. Don't have time to tell you how to do that, I'll get to you later. And I'm gonna hold everybody, elected officials, to their oath to support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States in Wyoming. I'm tired of people not defending the Constitution in the state, and I'm gonna point them out. So we're gonna have fun doing that one. Thank you, guys.
Well, I hope this isn't inappropriate. I will lose 10 seconds saying it, but this is a good man and a great treasurer, and I've enjoyed working with him, and he's doing just an incredible job. I'm learning so much from him. I just want to say thanks for the invitation to the Chamber of Commerce, and thanks to all of you for this opportunity. Thank you again for coming out. You are a rare breed. Most of America's home right now, but you are here caring about your country and your state. I just want to reiterate a little bit of what I said at the very beginning. Wyoming truly can lead the nation in education, but to do so, we got to stay married to the purpose of education, which is to teach kids how to think. And if that is the case, then it of necessity means teaching them logic at some point in their journey. Teaching them at least 3 years of logic as part of the core disciplines, because logic is the systematic rules of thinking. It also means it includes reinforcing the philosophy, the philosophical integrity of our classroom. Abraham Lincoln said the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation becomes the philosophy of government in the next. And so that means keeping critical race theory and any version of it by another name and gender ideology the heck out of our classrooms. It also means, and it also involves, as far as Wyoming leading the nation in education, reviving the concept and reminding our parents that they are the owners of our schools. These are their children, they pay the taxes, we work for them, therefore we are accountable to them, therefore we should listen closely and carefully to our parents. It also involves rejecting, starting, or at least beginning the process of rejecting federal funds. If we don't, they're always going to have their hooks in us, there's always going to be strings attached, and we will never be free of social engineering and what's coming down the pike unless we cut our ties with federal funds, at least in education. And finally, by resisting the cultural currents. We've got to we can't fall into what all the other schools are falling into across the nation. William Bennett said, when the culture pushes hard against you and your family, you must push back just as hard. I've been in Wyoming schools. They're like I was when I was in school, some exceptions notwithstanding. That is worth protecting and preserving. That's what motivates me. That's why I want to run for this office. Thank you so much for the honor of being able to serve you folks.
Well, I'll thank you, my gratitude to the Chamber, to the community for coming tonight. It's really great to be here in Evanston. As I mentioned before, what we're really trying to do here in our education system, we want to ensure that our kids have jobs that are leading to successful futures, jobs that hopefully are right here in Wyoming. And we do that by empowering parents to have a voice, be involved in their child's education, and as many choices as possible. And by getting government out of the way, out of the classroom, so that we can prioritize funding and our efforts with students and teachers where it belongs. And it also includes partnering with our industries in Wyoming, making sure that we're meeting the needs of the workforce, and that we're working together to keep that education system nimble. The superintendent also serves on important boards that were discussed tonight, including the State Land Board, State Loan and Investment Board. It's critical that we have individuals that understand state lands in Wyoming and balancing the fiduciary responsibility of balancing revenue as well as stewardship. I love Wyoming. I'm deeply, deeply rooted here, and I've been fighting for Wyoming and for conservative values for a very long time in this state. And I believe with that comes a great sense of accountability. I'll be accountable to you, I'll be accountable to our state, and most importantly, I'll be accountable to our kids. My name is Megan Degenfelder, and I'm running for State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Thank you.
Once again, good evening. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for inviting all of us. I've learned from every one of these candidates. Thank you. I gave all of you this little 5x7. And let me just repeat why I'm running for state superintendent of public instruction. Education should be evenly and equitably distributed with love to every child, regardless of age, gender, race, class, ethnicity, or sexual orientation. That's what education is about. I've been in the classroom throughout my life. I was a presidential appointee to George Herbert Walker Bush to the National Advisory Council on Indian Education. I served under his administration with NACI, and I learned so much about organizational management. Education is a foundational piece of our democracy. Education will be and is currently a foundational piece to the state of Wyoming. And with that said, I've been in the classroom throughout my life. I've met a lot of people. Somebody made mention a little while back ago, you know, Serge, they must feel comfortable when they just say Serge instead of Sergio. You know, Serge, you are Wyoming's native son. I looked at him with raised eyebrows. I am simply Sergio Maldonado, classroom teacher, and my first teacher was my mother, who taught us how to read, to think. My father, who taught us how to, my siblings and myself, how to be disciplined, to wake up when it's time for school. I believe in education in Wyoming, and I know that my leadership can provide the direction that we must address. We have wonderful teachers, wonderful superintendents, wonderful parents. Recently, the Wyoming Education Association reviewed all of the candidates who sit up here and who are not here. I was selected by the WEA and was endorsed and is endorsed by the WEA as the best candidate for this job. Thank you.
Thanks again to the Chamber, Tammy, Mika, Dave, Todd. I don't know if there's anybody else here, but thank you again for putting this together. Appreciate all of you coming and staying. It's been a long night. But I would just like to say that I think I'm the one candidate, probably the only candidate up here that's lived and worked in each of these towns in Uintah County. I've represented all of them in one way or another. And I think folks here know me. And they, like I said before, they can come up and talk to me at the coffee shop or at the restaurant, and they know my name, they know what I look like. They know they can tell me what I like or what they like, what they don't like. And I appreciate that. In fact, tonight, I met someone in the back of the room that there's only about 4 or 5 people here that I don't know in this room. And she said, you know, thank you. You're the only legislator that ever wrote back to me. And I thought that made my day, because that's what I'm here for. I only made one promise when I went out and campaigned the first time, is I will try to represent all of you in Uintah County the best I can. And obviously my loyalty is to you folks, and obviously the Constitution of the United States and Wyoming, and I hope I've done that. If I have, I think folks will vote to send me back again. If I haven't done that kind of a job that you like, I'll go off into retirement with my husband. He just retired, and we'll figure something else to do. So I've enjoyed it. I've loved it. I feel like I've done a good job. I think I've represented the folks here in Uintah County to the best of my abilities. I hope you'll give me another chance. I think I can have some unfinished business, as I said before. I have a fairness in women's sports bill I'd like to bring back and get it across the finish line. But more importantly, I'd really like to work on your problems, you know, inflation and gas prices and housing and, you know, all these other things that I think are really more important, honestly, than that. So thank you again for coming tonight. I think the biggest thing I can tell you is to show up on August 16th. Tell your folks, tell your kids if they're old enough to vote. Tell everybody. Let's get more people out there voting. And thanks for your time.
Thanks again for having us out here. I appreciate your attendance and your attention to the matter and the discussions. And I have to say, David, you've done a fabulous job keeping track of the time. I just had to say that because the recorder's right here in front of me, so I want to make sure that was captured. Now you'll see as you drive around, you see my signs. You see that it says Principal Dedicated Conservative. And those are more than just words to me. I think it defines who I am, and I think it sums up how I represent the people in our community well. And I'm very proud. There's all kinds of different mechanisms out there that measure and assess the conservativeness. Everybody claims to be conservative, but when they looked at all 90 legislators in the state, they combined the House and the Senate and ranked us all. I was happy to see I was number 15 in the state, and I'm very proud of that. because it means something to me. When I say I'm conservative, that's me. Some people tell you I'm cheap, and I just have learned. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. I had to make do with what I had, and I've always worked for nonprofits, and I still believe I'm in the service sector, and I do feel that it's my duty and responsibility to try to make sure I stretch those dollars. Those dollars come from you people, and I try to make sure that those dollars are responsibly applied and that we stretch them as best we can. And I take it very serious. I hope that you'll look very long and hard at our track record. I'm against increasing taxes. I'm for getting the government out of our bedrooms, out of our wallets, and freeing us. We need to go back to following the Constitution. They have enumerated powers for a reason, and the federal government is not being held to those. Thank you for your time, and remember to vote August 16th.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to remember one thing. Uinta County makes Wyoming great. And I submit to you this evening, we're not the end of the state, we're the beginning of the state. My entire life has been dedicated to service. 21 years in the military, as I mentioned a few civic responsibilities between the Board of Parole, UN Economic Development Committee, Wyoming Workforce Development, suicide prevention, and most recently Governor Gordon appointed me to the Wyoming Veterans Commission. As we continue this journey together, it's about you. It's about representing your voice, your values, and your beliefs in Cheyenne. Because if we're not at the table, we're going to be on the menu. Additionally, one thing that has been brought up this evening is the water issue. I'm actively involved and engaged in the Colorado River compact discussions. We got to be vigilant. We got to have somebody there to defend our water because it's going downstream, literally and figuratively. I want to follow up with this. If you own a business, and we talked a lot about economic growth, if you own the business, I want you to consider this. If you have a vacancy in that business, you recruit. Once you're recruiting, you look at the resumes. You look for somebody that has the experience, the performance, the dedication, and the results to take you to the next step. I submit to you, if you look at my record of service and results, there's none better. I kindly and graciously ask for your consideration in this most important time in this great state of Wyoming. Bless you, bless this state, bless this county, and these United States of America. Thank you.
Well, first off, I want to thank the support of my wife, Vicki, and my family. I get told I don't give them as much appreciation as they deserve. But I do want to thank all of you guys for spending your time out here to listen to us. And I'm going to ask for your vote for District 19. I am the one candidate in this race that has the proven track record of supporting Republican values. You know, you talked a lot of things. 18 years old, right out of high school, I joined the Army. Later on, before I took the current job, I started with a company here in Wyoming, took it from a startup company to become the third largest electronics gaming company in the world. Traveled all over the world, the country, pushing that. I know how to run a business. The thing is, and I'll tell you, the other day, I was a speaker up at the Save Wyoming rally in Lander, and afterwards I was talking with Harriet Hageman. I said, what do you think, Harriet? She says, you know, I don't give endorsements because of her being a candidate, but she says, you can tell people I support you 100% and Cheyenne needs you. There's three things that I really look for when it comes into the political area. First off is God. Second is the Constitution, both the U.S. and Wyoming. And the third is Republican principles. I stand by the Wyoming Republican Party platform. Heck, I helped put some of that stuff in there. And Those are principles that I will not and do not compromise on. Other things we can use to work to get the end results. Anyway, I'm about out of time here. So thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, feel free to call me or email me, and I'll either talk to you on the phone or I'll come see you. Thanks.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody else for coming tonight as well. Thank you for the Chamber of Commerce. This is quite a meeting tonight. I am a newcomer in within the political world. As I mentioned earlier, it wasn't something I ever intended on doing. I've made some really good friends with some of our state legislatures over the last little over 4 years. And to be honest, it's kind of interesting how this came about. Here back in April, I was one of about 15 candidates within the state that were essentially asked if we would be considered to run as conservatives. And these are the group that are within our 100% voters. I don't have the political backgrounds of either the two individuals to my left. I have received some endorsements, Governors of America, Wyoming Right to Life, and I was recently advised that I can unequivocally share with everybody that Lyle Williams here of the county GOP gives me his full endorsement. Now, I'm one who believes in our absolute 10th Amendment states' rights, and those are things that we need to protect and guard with everything that we have. We need to get to cash-based accounting, election integrity, and we absolutely need full government transparency. We need to see how everybody's voting, where all of our money's going. These are things that we really need to know. I've met with individuals that work for or are representatives of public utilities, and they've shared concerns with me. I've met with law enforcement, and they've opened up and shared with me as well. I've met with businesses, and I keep going around and getting everybody's input. And I studied law back in for about 10, 15 years. Thank you, it's time out. So anyway, I hope you'll consider voting for me. My phone number is on my cards back there, but I'm always available. So thank you for your time.
So I've been a teacher my entire professional life, and I love my job. It's a great job, and it is a full-time job. But as that job continued, I thought, well, I'll pick up a part-time job and I'll be a coach. But what I found out is being a coach is not a full-time, or it's not a part-time job. It's a full-time job as well. And running a family, being a family person, that's not a part-time job, that's a full-time job. Where I'm getting is I made a lot of sacrifices in my career. The sacrifice to take part-time jobs into full-time jobs. You're gone a lot, your family sacrifices, you have to give it all or nothing. Well, people say, we look at our legislature, and they say it's a part-time legislature. Guess what? It's not. It is not part-time. You're full-time all the time. I'm willing to spend a lot of time, I set myself up to spend a lot of time working for you, the people. I've asked my wife, I love her to death, and my family about running, and they know and understand the sacrifice that they're going to have to give up. The time that you spend with your family, you don't get to do that when you're doing these kinds of jobs. Okay? So I'm really willing to do that. Part of my career, I haven't had a lot of time to spend on boards and putting housing development and things like that together because I was doing other jobs, coaching and supporting kids and advocating for disabled. And now I'm time to throw my hat in a ring and run for a public office and support you, the people of Evanston. And the last thing, I would be honored, absolutely honored, to represent you, the people of Evanston, and House District 49. Thank you. You're one of my kids I coached. State champion right here. It was fun.
Okay, so I think there's a kind of an obvious difference between me and all the other candidates here on this stage. I am the most good looking. But to be honest, I've always been kind of different than everybody else my age. I've been interested in the political process since I was 10 years old. I've gone to meetings and forums and fundraisers. I've gone to legislative committee sessions, and I have the experience, despite how good I look, to represent this community and to represent your values. I think it's very obvious that here in Wyoming we have shared values. We enjoy the liberties of small communities. We love the fact that we don't have as much influence coming from Washington or larger cities full of people that don't share our same values. You always see in the news that Florida and Texas are these wonderful bastions of conservatism, and they're passing these amazing things, and I think to myself, why isn't Wyoming in the news? Why aren't we the ones charging forward saying, yeah, we're not going to put up with this anymore. We're going to be the ones that are going to start taking our federal lands back. We're going to be the ones making these revolutionary tax cuts for our citizens. I think as your representative, I can get together with some of my fellow candidates here, the ones that win, and then we can really cause some positive change. I stand for the Constitution of the state and of the federal government. I believe that I am the candidate here that can best represent the people moving forward, and I have the vigor and the resolve to represent you.
Well, I thank you all for your patience tonight as we worked our way through a number of important issues. Thank you again to the Evanston Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity to share with you some thoughts about some very important issues that exist locally. We have many things to be proud of in this community. We have wonderful amenities. We have the Bear Project. We have the state park. We have wonderful outdoor recreational opportunities. We have a vibrant downtown. We have a historic district that many in the state envy. We have an excellent school system. We have outreach opportunities through institutions of higher learning. We have assets, such as a wonderful industrial park, the Wyoming State Hospital grounds, and the 1,000 acres that are adjacent to the state park. We have a large number of people who really care about this community, and many of you are here today. While we have cause to celebrate all of these things, in order to maintain and improve our quality of life, we need to do a number of things. We need to ensure that all that are in need of healthcare services receive them. We need to make sure that we have a stable base for our educational funding so that we can increase and improve the quality of our education for all of our students, our children, and our grandchildren. I have the experience in researching and analyzing complex problems, including financing and taxation. I've spent the last 40 years solving individual problems and community problems. I ask you for the opportunity to help you solve the important problems of this community, and I ask for your vote in the November general election. Thank you.
thank everybody for coming out tonight, especially some of the candidates in the statewide races that have been traveling on the road a lot. Appreciate your time tonight. We encourage everybody to mingle with the candidates. If you've got questions, meet with them one-on-one. We're not going to open up questions from the floor, but we encourage you to meet with them on an individual basis. And again, thanks for coming tonight.